Most fans think Canelo wins easily, but after you hear these 3 reasons, you would see why Terence Crawford could pull off the upset. But before we get into it, if you have not subscribed to this channel yet, or if you're new to the channel, then don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and leave your comments in the section below. The first reason why Terence Crawford could shock Canelo in this fight is wear and tear. Look, although Terence Crawford is the older fighter, currently 37 years old, and Canelo 35 years old, Canelo has the more wear and tear. Look, Crawford has had less fights than Canelo. Canelo is currently 63 fights, 2 losses and 2 draws. Now, that is a lot of fights. And as you guys know, and as we all know, every time a fighter steps in the ring, they leave something in the ring. And Canelo, you could see that has a lot of wear and tear because he's been through a lot of wars. He's had incredible fights. Look, we should be commending fighters for fighting. And Canelo has always fought twice a year, maybe sometimes 3 times a year. And it's very clear that although he's had a successful career, Canelo has got the wear and tear on his body. And when you're in a tough fight, like Canelo is going to be with Terence Crawford, it is always going to show that you have the wear and tear, and therefore that is going to have an effect on your body. If you look at Canelo's record, Canelo's first fight was in October 2005. That is a long time ago. If you then go to Terence Crawford's record, Terence Crawford's first professional fight was in March 2008. So that is quite a difference between the fighting career of Canelo and Terence Crawford, and that will have its toll on Canelo. And being in a tough fight, fighting someone like a Terence Crawford, who's very skilled, who has got incredible boxing brain, who knows when to fight, who knows when to take a break in fight, who knows how to pace himself in fight, I think it's going to be very hard for Canelo to match the energy that Terence Crawford will bring in this fight because of the wear and tear that Canelo has had so far in his career. I think this is going to be in Terence Crawford's favour, and it will show on the night why Terence Crawford could pull off the upset. Number 2, Crawford's power and speed. Look, I think that Crawford is going to have the speed advantage. I don't think that Crawford is going to have the power advantage over Canelo, but I think Crawford is going to compete with the power. But when it comes to speed, I think Crawford is going to be faster than Canelo in there, and that is going to be a massive difference once we get the fight underway. This reminds me of Alexander Usyk when he moved to heavyweight. We saw that Alexander Usyk was very fast, he was very nimble, he was really hard to hit. Usyk was very hard to pin down because he's coming from the lower weight division, and so he's always going to be faster, and he was very fast on the heavyweight, and that was very clear. And I think that's the same thing that we're going to see in this fight, where Terence Crawford, because he's coming from the lower weight division and Canelo is the bona fide super middleweight, it is going to be clear that Terence Crawford is much faster, is much nimble, is much harder to hit, is much harder to pin down, and Canelo is going to find it difficult to deal with Terence Crawford's speed. And that is something that is going to be very, very hard for Canelo to do, because we know that Canelo's style depends on a fighter standing still and ready to bang it out. And because Terence Crawford is going to be very nimble, it's going to be hard for Canelo to have success, especially later on in the fight as the fight goes on to the latter rounds. When it comes to the power aspect, I think Canelo is going to be powerful because he's always been powerful. Terence Crawford, although has been powerful in those weight divisions that he's been fighting below, I think he's going to carry his power very well because Crawford is a switch hitter. He's a crafty kind of fighter. He can fight southpaw, he can fight orthodox, and I think Crawford is definitely going to have some pop in his punches, and I think that Canelo is going to feel the power of Crawford because I think Crawford is going to carry that power. So look, I think the speed is going to be in Crawford's advantage, and I think Canelo and Crawford are both going to be powerful, and I think that it is going to be easy for Crawford to land his shot and get out of the way than Canelo will be able to do so due to the fact that Crawford has the speed advantage. And I think that will shock Canelo as how fast and nimble Terence Crawford is in this fight. And then number 3, Crawford is simply the better boxer. Look, when it comes to fighting, Canelo can fight. When it comes to war, Canelo can go to war. The same thing applies to Terence Crawford. When it comes to fighting, Crawford can fight. When it comes to going to a war, Crawford can go to war. But one thing that I think separate these fighters, and one thing that I think will be the reason where this fight is lost and won, is the boxing ability. Terence Crawford, in my opinion, is a better boxer, pure better boxer than Canelo Alvarez. And I think that is where this fight will be won and lost, because when Canelo can match Crawford in terms of fighting, that would be clear. When Canelo can match Terence Crawford in terms of going to war, that would also be clear. But Canelo cannot match Terence Crawford in terms of technical boxing skills. And I think this is where Terence Crawford will show Canelo that he can really change styles. He can switch hit, as we know that Terence Crawford can do. That Terence Crawford can outclass and outbox Canelo at times in there. I think for most people, it will be really interesting to see the way Terence Crawford will have it his own way at times in that fight, because he's the better boxer and he will make Canelo miss and make Canelo pay. Once again, it just reminds me of Alexander Usyk when he moved to heavyweight. It was just clear that Alexander Usyk was the better boxer, and is a better boxer than every heavyweight that he fought, and he made that count. Usyk would use his jab very well. Usyk would use his boxing IQ, and I see Terence Crawford doing the same thing. He can fight southpaw, and it's going to be difficult for Canelo, the orthodox fighter, to really pin Terence Crawford, who's a southpaw, down. Crawford will use his footwork, will use his jab, will use his boxing IQ. He will find ways to get the advantage over Canelo, and I think it's going to be really difficult for Canelo to box with Terence Crawford. I think the only time Canelo can have a success is to drag Terence Crawford into a war, into a fight, and that way Canelo can get into a dogfight, because we know that Canelo is really good in having a dogfight, and that is where he's going to have the success. But when it comes to technical boxing and really out punching each other or out jabbing each other, or the footwork doing the right things for each other, I think that Terence Crawford is definitely going to have the upper hand over Canelo. But Canelo can get in there and make this into a dogfight, make this into a war, and he's going to have more success. Although Terence Crawford is also someone that is not scared to get into the trenches and have a war or have a fight. Look, it is an absolutely interesting fight. I am super excited about this fight. I am interested to know what you guys think. Who are you picking to win this fight? If it is Canelo, why are you picking Canelo to win this fight? If it is Terence Crawford, why are you picking Terence Crawford to win this fight? These are the 3 reasons why I believe Terence Crawford will shock Canelo. Let me know what you think about it. My name is Bright. This is the Bright Show Podcast Boxing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.